Hi, I'm the Syn with a Y. I'm a vaudevillian burlesque performer, musician, and costumer in the Denver area. I also teach Costume Mayhem. This tutorial is for the class project Pasties, which is to encourage people to make their holidays more festive with putting boob jewelry on for boys and girls. So I started by making some patterns. You probably want to measure your areola. I don't like to put tape directly on mine. I know a lot of ladies that do, but personal preference. So I've put some, if you come to my class or you're my friend, I will give you the pattern, obviously. So, and then you'll draw a line through the circles to cut the little wedge out. So here we are, the patterns. So I've taken them and cut them out already. Try to expedite this process a little bit. So we have a large circle. It's for a 2-inch pasty. And you can, this would be a smaller pasty if you wanted a nice pointy boob. It really depends on what kind of shapes you're after. I'll be printing a larger size sheet too. I forget about people who are not elves. So then I took some of this fantastic interfacing. My mom is a longtime seamstress and showed me some things at the fabric store when I started costuming as an adult. And this is by Pellon, P-E-L-L-O-N, and it is the 71F Peltex Ultra Firm One-Sided Fusible Interfacing. So I've taken this, and then you take your shape. It doesn't really matter what size. If you are doing one that maybe you would want symmetrical, then you'd want to flip the pattern over. I did not do that the first time, and I forget to do certain things, so I will remind myself in these videos. So then I would take whatever shape I'm interested in, and I'm just going to carefully trace around it with a Sharpie or a ballpoint pen. And then I'll take that and I'll cut it out with probably non-fabric scissors, because you want to keep your fabric scissors nice and sharp. So then we are going to heat up the iron. Some fabrics, they tell you you're not supposed to use this interfacing with and irons with. You probably shouldn't, but I'm a little shit. So what you want to make sure you always have is a barrier. I'll show you when we iron. It's a plastic sheet, and always set it on a lower setting because this will melt if you go any higher than it has to be for the fusing. Probably don't recommend it at home, and don't ever iron it directly because it's plastic and your stuff will be ruined forever. I'm going to do some tests with some other fabrics too, which I've never used this interfacing on, such as beard material. I thought we'd make some Scuzzy Yeti pasties. And then we'll be finishing those off with a little bell tied to a sequin tassel, just to get your seasons swinging. So let me get my iron heated up, and you always want to make sure make sure your patterns work. Trim them. If it doesn't look good now, after it's ironed, it's impossible to fix. So make sure everything fits the way you want to before you bond it to something else. Okay, let me go heat up the iron. Hi. So I have my iron all heated up now, and I'm going to do some different irons for the pasties. So the Peltex we were working with has 2 sides. One has these little plastic crystals that goes facing the fabric. You always want the fabric wider than your plastic crystal thingy. We're going to also be trimming around it and folding it over the edges before we make the back side to this. So I have this with the fabric side up right now. I'm going to stick the plastic sheet, and I have it on the lowest setting I pretty much can to do this, about 4 out of 10, and I'm going to hold it for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll see if that worked. And it did. And it's not melted or anything, you can see. But you have to be really careful. If your iron is any hotter than it needs to be, it will burn your fabric and it won't look hot. So always do a test, especially if you're making a larger headdress that's a lot more materials, before you ruin all of your things. So we're just going to do that with that side again, the crystal side up. I have a piece bigger than that so I can seam it afterwards because you want it to be pretty. We're making boob jewelry after all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. That's it. And you can see that one was a little funky. You can see the iron print there, so it kind of has a sweet spot too. But it's alright. It'll still work. Or you can make another one. You can see the difference. There's a little bit actually. So that's where it's melting a tiny bit. But if you want it, you'll figure out a way to have it. So next I'm gonna do this mix match set. Again, my glue's this side up. You don't want that on your ironing board. And then we're going to make sure the fabric is wider than that. And always make sure you're at the edge of your fabric too, because you don't want to be wasteful of your materials, as my mom would tell you. Just want to make sure you do it right the first time. I drop step. Here we go. So this one we're going to do a little longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See if it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With thicker fabrics, it takes longer. That went really well. And try not to move it for the first little moment because the heat and the plastic take a minute to coagulate, and you may actually have to re-iron things like I just caused myself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to set that aside. And now we're going to do a fun Yeti pair. Plastic side faces the back side of the fabric. Now this one is kind of different. You see it's got a nap to it. So then you want to decide what part goes up on these. So I'm going to have it so these are going to be little polygons. And so that bottom side will be down. So I want to make sure the fur is going down. So not only am I making sure the plastic side goes to the back, I want the fur coming down. So here we go. Those both look like they're in the right area. And then I am going to bond this. We'll see if that worked. That did not work. We're going to try it on this side. I might actually have to steam this one. You're supposed to actually use this interfacing on the low wool setting with a piece of fabric, a cotton piece of fabric that is wet. And especially with heavier fabrics like this, to get the heat to transfer properly, you're going to maybe need to do that. So, but we'll try it one more time this way. Again, make sure you're not going to be gluing anything to stuff that you want to use again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll go with that one. See if that works. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to steam it. And I didn't. So I'm going to get my steam rag and you'll see me in a minute. So I believe this is called a press cloth. I just used an old bed sheet that was ripped and it is moistened with water. I had to look up what a press cloth was when I first used one because I didn't have the foggiest. So another way you can do this, and this is actually the way you're supposed to use this interfacing, is I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit, and I have, again, it the right way on the fabric. Then I'm going to cover it with this moist press cloth. This is going to help transfer the interfacing into the heavier duty fabric. So let's give it a go. I'm going to go for 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the other one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Done. See if that worked. It did. Especially with the moisture, don't touch it because it's gonna pull apart if you do too early. We still are gonna make the backs to these, but we don't want to cut that piece until we figure out what the final size will be. So cool. So now I'm going to trim around these edges, leaving about about a 1/2 inch, and then we'll cut some darts and then stitch that on. It's really hard to do anything else with faux fur fabric, and I probably prick my fingers most on this stuff besides like sewing leather. Alright, cool. So hi. So I've been busy while the camera's been shut off, and I've finished a couple things, and then we'll go over what I did. So obviously I'm threading a needle. Pretty basic, but you know, they have needle threaders if you're hopeless. So then I match my string ends, and I usually give it 2 or 3 knots. We're gonna start with the Fuzzy Yeti pasties. I have one done here. It's so cute. So I have trimmed my fabric, so it's like about a 1/2 inch. You can see my little clips there too. So then I'm just really gonna base stitch this down. You're not gonna see the back, so it really doesn't matter. And if we put a backing on, if we glue the back piece on, then you won't even ever see that. So it'll be fully locked in one way or another. I feel like the lighting's really bad. All the sun went down. So so here I am. I'm gonna start with the end. I'm gonna pinch around the one with that side, and the front side, you're going to take an almost imaginary stitch so that you won't see any stitching on the front. The faux fur will hide quite a bit of it, but other fabrics are not so forgiving. So there's another stitch you can do called, I believe, a felting or hat stitch, and that you go V back and forth. I use that when I'm trying to have the most invisible stitches for my headdresses. You're always, with certain fabrics, going to have a puncture wound, so it's really, make sure they're pretty. So, and then I'm just gonna tuck that in there. We have a friend in New Hampshire that has a band called Fuzzy Yeti. I'm dedicating these to you, Turnbull. So this is my first costuming show. I'm gonna do many more of these and show you techniques, and maybe you'll come to my class sometime, and it's really fun. There's no right or wrong answer with costuming. You see, I can just kind of whip right along that. Now, if you aren't used to sewing, go slower than I'm going. Sometimes you get loops in the thread, and if you go more than 2 stitches, you're not going to be able to like get rid of that. It's fine with something like this where you're covering up the back side of it, but say I was making a fancy headdress, I don't want any stitching showing up on the front or the back. I want this to be pretty. So these are a really good starter item because you won't see the back. And especially if you're using faux fur, it will hide some flaws. So we're just continuing with that. I have a pasty workshop tomorrow at Release Studio, 1201 Santa Fe, Denver, New Colorado. I almost said New Hampshire, my home state. Hopefully someone comes, and I'm going to keep putting these out and show you everybody how to make costumes and try to create some excitement around it. My mom's family owned a crafting store, and they grew up like making rugs, tatting lace. My mom's grandmother made Martha Stewart look like a noob. So I'm kind of excited that maybe I get to carry on some of the crafting family legacy. It's very traditional from her family from Germany and Sweden and the British Isles. So it's exciting getting to share some of my family heritage with you, not necessarily making pasties, but the crafting and being skillful human beings and being able to, you know, make all kinds of neat stuff and not just have to buy what's in the store, because that's what got me costuming. I'm like, ooh, I want to do this, and the item that I wanted was like $400 or $500, And so I decided to try to hack it. And I have been costuming again for about 2 years, and every month I learn a bunch of new techniques, and I'm excited to try to foster my love of costuming and art with others, as well as the moving arts. So we'll see if it's a feasible living. But I like doing it, and I hope you like me doing it. Alright. So, and I'm just going to go right to the center here. And then I'm going to end it. Let's take a couple back and forth stitches. And then I'm going to take just like a little go through the back. Make sure you don't puncture the front. It's just a locking stitch. And then I'll trim that. It's nice to have little thread snips. Especially if you're making darts for really small things like this. Okay, so I have my Fuzzy Yeti nipple. That's going to go that way when it's ready. So now, if you see the one I finished, which is super cute, I'm going to put a sequin string on a bow, and then we're going to sew it in the middle and stitch it up. And these, because they have faux fur in the back, faux fur will stick really well, may stick well to adhesive. I might put a backing on these anyway, but I'll show you how to do that after I finish. This is a heavier duty thread. This is a quilting thread with bells and metal objects. Sometimes they have little burrs on them, which will like just break your thread over and over again. There's nothing you can do about it. So using a higher tensile string when you're sewing faux fur or things that are metal is definitely a good idea if you don't want to frustrate yourself and don't want your objects of love to be destroyed so fast. So I have a cute little bell here. And this shit is way easier to work with if you don't cut it up first. Hold on to the little string at the end. Yeah, there we go. This stuff can be maddening. So what I'm going to do before I even sew the bell on, because I'm going to kind of lock this together, is I'm going to keep holding that, and I'm going to go up and down about 4 sequins. Just kind of adding a little extra strength to this, because again, if there's any burr on the bell, or this decides to be the jerk that it is to work with, it will break on you, and then you'll cry because you spent a long time and it didn't work. Or I will. Maybe that's me. But okay, so now I went back and forth about 4 sequins, just kind of locking that in. Nothing wants to come off now. I'm not going to yell at it. Now I take the bell, and I'm just going to sew that on. I'm going to take that first sequin, but I just reinforced, and we're going to stitch back and forth through that in the second sequin through the back of the bell. I like to go a lot, like 5 times or so. Again, it's just nicer knowing that, you know, you spend lots of money on costumes sometimes and then the stitching sucks. It's really sad. So don't do that to yourself, obviously. So that's probably just about good. I was like locking in extra. I'm a little obsessive compulsive, so I like to lock things in on like 80 times. Alright, so now we have that ready. And again, just leave it on the string. The less you cut this thing, the less you'll want to pull your hair out. So now we're just going to check our lengths. I like to, you know, when I'm making pasties and everything, try to make them as like symmetrical as possible, unless you're doing a fun mix match set, and that can be super cool too. I was gonna do a star. You could do like a star and a gold one. Oh wait, here you go, there's one's finished. So you don't have to match them, but if you are going to match them, then I wouldn't necessarily even go to the counting the sequins, but you're just gonna try to figure out around where, and it looks like right around here. So so I'm going to make sure I have a knot in my needle, which of course I forgot to do after I cut it. Alright, so we got this cute little guy, and there was a little gap in it, so I pulled it over. Now this has two sides. There's the side the string is more visible on, and then the front side. So you want the one that's more blingy on the outside, obviously. So here we are. This is the top. I was wrong earlier. I actually like it better this way. I do a lot of experimental pattern making, so you know, you just make shapes and know what you know, and then just make sure you check your work as you go along, and I'll go over some other ways you can kind of hide mistakes and, you know, work with yourself. But never ever, if you're pattern making, make it in like the thing right away. Make sure you at least cut it out of paper and see if it looks kind of right before you make it an expensive like fabric. So here I have the ends. So both are on the proper side. You can see that. And I'm just going to take about 2 sequins down. Again, don't cut this stuff if you can get away with keeping it with its family, because it loses sequins like crazy. It's really, really frustrating. So I'm just going to take a few stitches here. I don't know where that came out there. See, I like almost made a really bad boo-boo. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it out of there, actually. We shall see. But that's way low. I am not perfect, and sewing is not always therapeutic, but it is sometimes. Oh, darn it. Okay, so when in doubt, just trim your string. Don't like especially with sequins, because the more you pull on them, the more fucked up they're gonna get. Pardon my language. This is an adult show, by the way. We're making pasties. If your children are around, I'm a nudist, but you know, I understand people might be angry at me dropping an F-bomb, but I'd assume you're cool parents if you're watching a tutorial on making pasties. I hope you're cool parents. There's nothing profane about nipples. So let's decorate them. My big campaign is I want the boys to wear blingy nipple jewelry for me. Please. Please. I like it. Okay, we're going to try this again. So, again, if you have any problems with these things, and they do, it'll catch your string. Like, I do not recommend playing with sequins, like, unless you're a showgirl. Alright, so just going to take a couple sequins here. I'm going to go back and forth a few times just to make sure we're nice and locked in. Alright, that looks really good. So now I'm going to take that and cut it off at the next sequin. So I don't, just don't cut your thread. You just went to all that work and all, you know. And so this has a little flat spot on this side. So I'm going to take this skinny side and I'm going to match it the flat side, and that's going to be the top right there. Isn't that cute? And so now I'm just going to do that basting stitch, and because you're sewing two sides together, and you may want to pin stuff too. I've been doing this quite a while, and I have gotten used to using my hands as supports, but when in doubt, just use pins. Try not to make yourself bleed. I have to take breaks from sewing sometimes because my hands are just too cut up. Yeah, so, and we're almost done. I almost lost it. Maybe I should have pinned it. Alrighty then, so here we go. And then now that I did the little edge too. And if your fur gets stuck, you can brush it out too. My mom would always brush her stuffed animals after she made them. Maybe she wanted them to come to life too, who knows. Alright, so here we have our cute little fuzzy Yeti pasties. And so we did those. And then we had the gold circle. So I went ahead and I cut around it. And then there's these little cuts right here. And you can just kind of gather them as you go around. But make sure when you're stitching your front, you use an invisible stitch. And, you know, one thing you can do to cover your puncture wounds is sequins. Anytime you feel anything has a flaw as an entertainer or showgirl, just add more feathers, sequins, glitter. It looks fantastic and it's fun. And then you don't notice anything. It just looks like gorgeous. Alright, so then if we want to finish these proper, now make sure if you have something lovely like this, you probably want to use a pencil to trace around it. So what we will do, I have a pen or a pencil, which you might not. And what also might work is the pattern I made. That might be fine for one of these. So and you can cut that down a little bit. So then what I would do with that backing again, and you'd want it slightly smaller size, you would bond that. I like to bond it with an ultra suede. Ultra suede, it looks really sexy and it bonds really well. By that I mean the back side of pasties, you want them to stick to tape. So felt is recommended, and also ultra suede is really nice too. It has a really nice grip compared to some other things. The Powon does not hold as well as I thought it would, but it's a synthetic, it's not a cotton or natural fiber, so the way it sticks and absorbs will be different than an organic fiber, which is easier to dye as well. So I think that concludes our lesson today. I hope to see you at Costume Mayhem, and happy holidays. I hope they're naughty and festive.